Hi all, I have an interesting over-the-board game to show you from the other night. My opponent was Jochen Wittmann. It was a home match at Barnet Elizabethan's Chess Club against Chingford. So this is board 2. Jochen Wittmann's around the same rating as me. I'm 199 at the moment, he's 198. I played knight f3, he plays his favourite Dutch defence. By the way, if you're looking for a chess club in North London, if you're in the North London area, please let me know. I'm a member of 2 clubs, Muswell Hill and Barnet Elizabethan's, and they're welcoming new players at the moment. Okay, so anyway, I play e4 here, trying to surprise my opponent. But this Gambit attempt, unfortunately, although he might take one pawn, he might not take another. After knight g5, he plays d5. And after d3, no, he's not going to give me the fun of e takes d3. Even in live work, it's given us a small advantage if black is a bit too greedy, taking this pawn here. Yeah, for example, that's what the live book continuation goes like this, where bishop takes h7, and you've got tactics now with queen h5. I'm not going to go into great detail here, but you know, queen h5 check. This is interesting already. This position. Okay, so yeah, let's go back. So yeah, it's a bit dangerous to take this. He actually plays one of the stronger moves, queen d6. D takes e4. Another idea is knight c3 with the idea of knight b5. But I played d takes e4. We have h6, knight going back to h3. I didn't want a tempo gain on d takes e4 particularly. Although in live book, knight f3 has been played 6 times, but there's actually 8 games with knight h3 and 10 with queen h5. The queen h5 going like this. I didn't like this position particularly in my analysis. Black's actually a bit better here after bishop f6 apparently. Okay, so that's not, I don't think that's too hot. So knight h3 I thought was okay for an interesting position. He just takes on e4 though. The queen, that's a great place for the queen to challenge my queen. It's forcing an issue here about where do I want my queen. I play queen e2 to try and regain the pawn. There's also an idea of bishop f4. He protects the pawn. Knight c3. And the virtue of queen d6 is again emphasized here. Black doesn't have to try and castle kingside. He plays bishop g4 with tempo on the queen. And it seems, you know, black's going to have easy development with knight c6 and castles queenside. I play f3, hoping to at least get the light square bishop. A big hope, you know, takes. If he took here, why would he give me the light squares though? Why would he want to do that? No, he plays, I think, a better continuation. He takes on h3 first, not giving me any time for any tempo gains on his queen. And now he takes on f3. Queen takes f3, knight c6. And I feel, what have I done? I'm a pawn down here. This doesn't look like one of the greatest ever gambits I've played in chess. Although it does have a virtue, it's relatively unexplored territory. It is kind of a pawn down. On the other bright side, the silver linings, if we had to list them, white does have the bishop here and the light square bishop. So anyway, I try and use the light square bishop here by pinning this knight to at least inflict some structural damage on black. So after he castles, he's not threatening my knight and queen on that. He's not threatening anything immediately. I take on c6. He takes with the queen. The queen's come off. Yes, it's a little bit. It's not really what I'd really wanted from the opening. I just have to grin and bear it here. I just have to try and use the long-term potential weakness of his double pawns and the isolated pawn here, and try and gang up on the e pawn, which is isolated. He does move that. I castle bishop c5, and I have got a simple plan here to double my rooks against e5, which I use. I employ that plan, driving the bishop back at least. But now I take this diagonal with that last move, bishop e3. I take the diagonal. The thing is, he might have this. Plays knight d5. I don't want to undouble his pawns. I play knight e4. If he's going to play knight f4, I want it with a nice knight on e4, which again I think is reasonable compensation here for being a pawn down. It's not just the blockading knight, it's the pawn structure, of course. He plays knight f6, and I thought, okay, given I've blown the opening, and this really wasn't what I wanted, I offered a draw around here, and after knight c3, he rejected it. He played a6. And here, I think I made a mistake, bishop g1. I didn't like this move while he was thinking. I really didn't. I thought just simply knight d5 to f4 is more useful here now. But he played actually g5, which I think is another good move, trying to get a lock on the f4 square. But knight d5 is dangerous. If here, then knight f4. Now if rook e3 does knight g2, and if rook d2, the engine gives this as actually slightly better for black, but on the other hand I do have the blockading knight. But he's going to get another pawn, that's the problem. If I'm worried about pawns. If I play bishop c5, take off the bishops. Apparently, though, it's not that easy, this position of black, even though if he's got two pawns, because I've got a little bit of play against his structure actually. Saying like this, it's an advantage to black. Pardon me. It's an advantage to black, but it's not that easy. Not that easy. The knight on c5 is pretty nice. But yeah, I thought that was the winning plan here, knight d5 to f4. I kind of regretted this, because at least when it was on the e3 I could have snap it off. I've created a kind of weakness of the last move. He played g5 though, and I just actually here was relieved. I put the bishop back. Knight d5, knight e4. I'm prepared to snap that knight off. I don't mind the knight versus bishop scenarios in the endings. Rook f3, hitting h3. I dissolve my pawns though. h4. He takes. Bishop takes, rook g8. I play now a3, which could be a problem in the long term, putting pawns on the same color as the bishop. I'm aware of that. Rook g6. Now he reckons bishop g5. I didn't really see the point of bishop g5. I put the bishop back on d2. It's also an engine recommendation. I mean, it does prompt the pawn to go forward, but here, what is white doing? Say like this, and the bishop can go there, but you know, there's tactical trouble potentially with the bishop here. For example, rook d2, knight g2. There's tactical trouble, and there's trouble with this pawn. So I not that I saw that, but I just put the bishop back at base for a moment. Knight f4. Now here is the point where I snap that off, but I think he should take with the pawn to deprive white of the e3 square, which can be useful for a rook coming here later. He actually takes with the rook. So I would say maybe this is a slight mistake, maybe, because I've got rook e3 now. And with the blockading knight, I wasn't that unhappy anymore with the position. So we have rook fg4, king d2, check, yeah, bishop f8, threatening bishop h6, skewering. I get out of that. Bishop h6 anyway, but now I just snap off a pair of rooks and play rook h3. And yeah, I think it's getting tricky for him, this position. So here, he actually played bishop f4. And I do take his pawn, and I was expecting him to take here, but because I've equalised on pawns, he played actually king b7, which I found mysterious. I suddenly realised, why don't I just protect my pawn with h3, which I played. It turns out here, if rook takes, well, simply this variation, which he pointed out after the game, I'm winning this pawn by force, by encouraging that pawn forward. It's going to be eaten by the knight. So yeah, that explains kind of why he's reluctant to take on h2 here. Taking in the bishop looks pretty awkward as well for slightly different reasons. Let's just check this position. I think by this stage the engine thinks it's about equal. So after here, if bishop takes, there's knight c5 threatening mate in 2. If this is actually better for white, it's winning that pawn again, pawn up again. So knight c5 for different. That's the reason there. Knight c5 is the key thing. So yeah, I'm back on equal playing field in terms of material. King b6, b4. I want to establish a blockade point, but another way of playing it is clearly to put the pawns on light squares away from the bishop. But I was attracted to this idea of knight c5, rook g1, rook h8. I thought if I could get knight c5 and this check, then I'd be winning pawn on c7. But things start moving rapidly in terms of pawn structure here against this plan. He plays check here. I've got to be careful not to lose the knight. Well, if here, then rook d4 check. So I carefully play king here, rook e1, pardon me, rook e1, and yeah, unless I want a draw, I have to go with the knight c5 plan. The thing is here now, he plays e4, simultaneously protecting the pawn, but also threatening bishop e5 check to win the rook. And he thought here maybe coming up. Let's just do one more move. Rook e8 looks really good. I thought it would look really good because if he moves the pawn forward, I've got knight d3 forking his rook and bishop. Just to show you that knight d3 looks good here because I'll be winning that e3 pawn. I'll be a pawn up after. Yeah, that'll be great. Great to play. I'll enjoy playing that. But unfortunately, he's setting some obstacles here. He plays bishop d6. I do take that pawn, and I am a pawn up here. He mentioned, let's just, before we get there though, instead of rook e8, okay, this position, around about here, he mentioned the possibility of trying to mate here, and we didn't know how this felt in the post-mortem analysis, how this is mating that fell. And the funny thing is, for hours after he told me, I didn't check it with an engine this game. I only put it in the next day. We didn't see how this is parried, and I started my theory of coordination squares. I don't know if you saw the Kingscrusher radio show last night about how predatorial apes chase monkeys to eat when they're desperate. I don't think when they don't have enough other stuff to eat. I know it's terrible, but they have chasers and catchers, and the chasers here in this position as a chess metaphor can be like the rook and the knight, but you need coordination squares, and I didn't really identify a6 as a coordination square, only b7. If you remember the variation I gave earlier, I identified b7 but not a6. And here, yeah, if I should have really considered more rook a8. And it looks as though at first, isn't black just being mated here? Because if you look at this, well, if I give you 5 seconds, can you see a defense for black? You might. I'll 5 seconds to pause the video. What defensive thing can black do here, which is picked up by the engine the next morning, which kind of we didn't see. There were 3 of us, all about 190, which didn't see it, to be honest. I mean, like tired. Well, one of us was really tired. So that's the disclaimers. But there is a defense for black here against this mating there. I know this is a great coordination square, and the rook and knight are the chasers and the king hunt, so to speak. But there is a way of the king not being mated, the monkey escaping, so to speak. So I'll give you 5 seconds starting from now to pause the video. What would you play with black? Okay, not king b5. Because actually, I think rook is checkmate anyway immediately. Let alone a4 is possible as well to get the exact mating square as originally. No, but there turns out to be check here with the idea of rook takes a3 simply. Yeah. Yep. It's as simple as that. Yeah. But for hours I thought, what? How did I miss this mate? He told me about it in post-mortem. I missed this mating opportunity. I was gutted. Obviously he was better earlier, but I was gutted to miss this mating opportunity. That anyway, I played rook e8. I thought that was sensible to win a pawn at the time, and it looked good. I thought I was coasting it here. I'm a pawn up. For me, a pawn down. I should be celebrating. The thing is, he's got piece coordination here with his king. His king's quite aggressive, and he's going to be playing a5. And I make a mistake here. This is where I make a big mistake. I play a kind of passive looking rook move here, when instead rook h4 I believe is better. I play rook e3. On rook h4, I mean, this is an interesting position, so I'm trying to hold on to my extra pawn, right? What does black actually do here? Let's turn a little bit to here. Let's say king a4. In this position, there is another kind of mating there. It looks as though this is really dangerous for my structure, but there's a way of white saving the structure here with rook h5, which is a mating net. You know, if king takes, then we've got mate here. Yes, it boils down a lot to tactical ideas, this position, with mating nets. So if king a4 is not actually possible, it adds weight to the idea that rook h4 is the strongest move, because I would actually be threatening this mating net with rook h5 now, or at least, you know, to win a pawn. If here, then check, forcing c5. Okay, so in this position, if knight takes c5 is possible, but it will drop a3. The simple solution here, instead of knight takes c5, king b2, hitting the rook, and then take on c5, and I've won yet another pawn. So yes, why didn't I play rook h5? This seems to be the major golden missed opportunity. I think I had about less than 10 minutes here around this point in the game. This is like move 46. This blunder, it does seem a clear blunder, rook e3. And it allows black to undermine with a5, undermining the structure, and the bishop's really justified hitting those poor pawns. I didn't want to leave a pawn lurking around with the possibility of a4, so I actually dissolved that a pawn, thinking, you know, this pawn will hold these two in theory, and I've got my extra pass pawn. So I take on a5. This might be the best move, actually. It's the engine suggestion. If king here, this is actually better for black. This position, there's check, winning that b4 pawn like that. Almost better for black. It's actually overplaying. No, it's about equal. That's no problem. But I think taking on a5 is still a small advantage for white, technically, but I'm getting short of time. And crucially, it's like a team match, and a draw actually would help the team win the match, because actually we haven't done badly overall on other games. 6-board match. And after rook e5 check, c5, I did kind of offer a draw. I think it was with rook h4. I think I offered a draw here, move 49. My score sheet actually deteriorated at that point for that last move. I'm pretty sure it was rook h5 holding the pawn and holding the pressure. Here, it's only a tiny advantage for white, minuscule. So he thought about it a bit and accepted the draw. So yeah, an exciting game. Probably a gambit I won't play in the near future again, knight f3, f5, e4. But at least, you know, I've had the fun of trying it out once. And, you know, in general, you know, some of the gambits you can have a lot of fun, but I think you've got to choose the right person that's kind of greedy, materialistic, that might want to take more than one pawn. So you feel the real initiative, the real power of the pieces come out sometimes when the opponent takes more than one pawn. But if they only take one pawn and they're ready to castle queenside and they're ready to play energetically, then the gambit can just lead to absolutely nothing. You can lead to regret, basically. Why did you play this gambit? That's the problem sometimes with trying to play gambits. What gambit is it? I'm not sure what the name of it is. Knight f3, f5, e4, but it's definitely in live book as a legitimate gambit attempt against f5 after knight f3. You might want to check it out and let me know in the comments of the video if you've tried this gambit system before, etc. That would be interesting to know. Okay, I hope you got something from this game. Comments or questions on YouTube. Thanks very much.